Today's code challenge is one I found on Code Wars. It's called find the odd int. Our job is to write a function that will take in an array of numbers, and it's going to have the same numbers over and over again, and it's going to have each of those numbers an even number of times in the array, except for one, it'll have an odd number of times. So our job is to find the one that is contained an odd number of times in the array and return it. So the simplest way that I can think of to do this is to have an object. We're going to use this object to keep track of how many times we've seen each number. So we'll do a for loop that goes through this array one by one, and it'll check this object, and it'll say, have we seen a 1 yet? And in this case, no. So it will add that in and say we've seen that 1 time so far. The next time it comes across a 1, it'll say, yes, we do have a reference to that in there, so let's add 1 to how many times we've seen that number. And then we'll see a 2 and say, well, have we seen a 2 yet in this object? No. So let's add 1 in and say we've seen it 1 time. And so on and so forth. The next one, we'd add 1 to how many we've seen. By the end of that for loop, we're going to have an object that'll tell us how many times each number is contained in the array. So let's get to that point. Okay. So we're going to go through the array one by one. If our odd object contains a reference to whatever number we're at, 1, 2, 3, 5, that means we already have a reference in the odd object. So we want to add 1 to how many times we've seen it. If we don't have a reference yet, let's create one and set it equal to 1. So by the end of this for loop, this object will show us how many times. Why isn't it like that? Oh, semicolon. It'll show us how many times we have each of these numbers in there. So you'll see on this first one here, line 16, we have 2 1s, we have 4 2s, we only have 1 3, so that would be our odd number. So that's the one we want to return is 3. On the second one, we have 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s, 2 4s, 3 5s. So that's our odd number is 5. So that's what we'd want to return for the second one. So for every for every key value pair in the odd object, if that number divided by 2 does not leave 0 as a remainder, so this modulus says we're going to divide by 2, tell me what the remainder is, and if it's not 0, that means we found the odd number. And the instructions promise that there will always be only one integer that appears an odd number of times. So once we find that odd integer, we can return it, and that's going to be the end of it. So let's get rid of the console.log. Let's do these one at a time. This bottom one should give us the number 5. There we go. And the top one should give us the number 3. Now the last thing we need to look at is it's returning a string, because as a key value pair, the key part of that is going to be a string. So what we want to do is create an integer out of that. You can use number, or you can do parseInt. And there we go. So let's plug the solution in. See what we got. There it is. So I hope you like the explanation of how that works. If you have any comments or questions, leave them in the comment section below. Go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.